Hi, how are you? Can you see and hear me well? Let me know in the chat, please. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I'd love to know a bit about you, who you are, what you do, and where you are from. So feel free to share it with me. You don't need to have your camera or mic on. If you'd like to say or ask something, just type it in the chat. My team and I will be here to answer all your questions. Let me see what you are sharing with me. You are from India, Mexico, UK, Canada, Lithuania, US, Greece, Egypt. I just love to see people from all over the world here. Thank you for being here with me today. Our time is limited, so I've designed this session to give you as much value as possible in less than 1 hour. I hope you leave today with some new ideas and feeling inspired to do more with the resources you already have. So, are you ready to start? I'm ready too, so let's go. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Diana Vencatel or Diana. I'm from Portugal. I'm based in my beautiful city, Porto, and I'm a conservator. Since I was a child, I've always had a passion for ancient Egypt. That's why I started out studying archaeology. My dream was to take part in an archaeological excavation in Egypt, and knowing it would be hard to go as an archaeologist, later I decided to shift into the field of preventive conservation. These days, I get to do what I truly love, working with collections and helping to preserve them. That's one of my missions. My other mission is to help professionals like you access the knowledge and support they need to care for collections. Just so you get a sense of my journey, I studied at the University of Porto and completed my master's degree with an internship at the Conservation Science Lab at the Victoria and Albert Museum, the world's largest museum of decorative arts and design in London. Since then, I've worked in many different settings, mostly focused on preventive conservation. For over 10 years, I've been working with libraries, archives, museums, and private collectors, mostly helping them to preserve their collections. And I've also been teaching in this field for over 10 years with a special focus on conservation of books and documents. A few years ago, I created an online platform where I share resources and training in this field to make practical and reliable information on conservation even more accessible. And that's exactly why I'm here with you today. Today, I want to talk to you a little about how we can overcome the lack of resources that we so often face in our work. I will share some practical ideas on how to optimize and repurpose the resources we already have. I will also talk about some cost effective alternative materials that can be used and also about the importance of sharing resources and knowledge among colleagues and institutions. I chose to bring you this topic today because I know there are many people who work with books, documents, and other types of paper based items and who need to ensure they are stored in the best possible conditions with the minimum expense. Let me know in the chat if that's your case. Just type yes. I can see there are many of you with this kind of limitation. You can be sure you are not alone, as you can see. Before we get into the strategies I've prepared for you today, I'd like to start by saying that one of the main ways to preserve books and documents is by storing and housing them properly, protecting them against deterioration and loss. Proper storage helps to keep items in good condition, extending their lifespan, maintaining their value, and preserving their authenticity, which is especially important in heritage collections. In many cases, we have to carry out this work with very limited resources, limited budgets, small or inadequate spaces, lack of suitable materials with the quality we need, limited time for this type of work, and lack of staff. Very often there are not enough professionals or professionals with the right qualifications to carry out the necessary tasks. That's why today I want to share some practical ideas you can start using right away so that lack of resources feels less like an obstacle and more like a challenge you can overcome with smart alternative solutions. I'll do my best to give you as much value as possible in less than 1 hour, but as you can imagine, I can't teach you everything you need in just 1 hour. That's why at the end of this session, I'll tell you about what could be your next step if you'd like to learn in more depth how to protect, store, and preserve paper collections. I also have a special bonus for those of you who stay until the end. You will get access to the slides from this session, so you can review at any time the suggestions I'll be sharing with you. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A where I'll be answering your questions. So stay with me until the end. It will be worth it. I designed this webinar for everyone who works or wants to work with paper collections, and I'd love to know which team you are on. Just type the letter of your team or teams in the chat. Team A, if you work with collections and face challenges storing paper materials with limited resources. Team B, if you want to refresh or update your knowledge on low-cost storage solutions. And Team C, if you are a student interested in learning about low-cost ways to care for paper collections. I'm seeing lots of A's, A, B, A, some C's, A, B, A, C. Okay, good. So here's what I'd love for you to do now. Please turn off any distractions so you can really focus on this training. Take notes and write down any questions you have, questions and ideas too. And lastly, if you think this webinar could help someone you know, send them the link you are using so they can join too. Let's begin by talking about optimizing and repurposing resources we already have. The truth is that whether a book or document is kept inside an enclosure or simply on a shelf, it has to be in a space. And very often, this is where we find the first problem. The environmental conditions of the space will largely determine the conditions in which the collection will be preserved. Therefore, we must pay special attention to the spaces we use to store collections. It's very important, for example, to have doors and windows well sealed. This not only prevents the entry of dust and pests, but also helps environmental control equipment such as dehumidifiers, air conditioning systems, etc., consume less energy and work less to maintain the preset temperature and relative humidity levels. It's also essential to keep roofs, gutters, and plumbing in good condition. Problems often start there with water leaks that cause damage to collections, leading to time and financial costs that are not always available. Whenever possible, it's advisable to make improvements to the building structure using quality materials and good construction or repair techniques. So, quality is very, very important. The reality is that most buildings used as museums, archives, or libraries were not originally designed for that purpose. Therefore, it's often necessary to adapt them to the collections they house. Even new buildings constructed for this purpose may need adjustments over time. Another important point is to carry out periodic inspections of the building's condition at least once a year. Ideally, a specialized technician should be consulted to identify and correct any anomalies such as cracks, roof problems, or plumbing issues. This is very important. In general, when choosing a space to store paper collections, you should try to avoid basements. These usually have higher levels of relative humidity, they are more exposed to flooding, and often have more insects and rodents circulating. Also, try to avoid attics. These tend to be hotter and drier spaces with extreme temperature fluctuations. You should also avoid storing books and documents near exterior walls, as these areas are more prone to temperature and relative humidity fluctuations. And avoid placing this type of collections close to radiators, heaters, or water pipes, since in the event of a leak or rupture nearby, materials would be the first to be damaged. Whenever possible, a safe distance should be maintained between collections and potential sources of any kind of risk. Keeping spaces clean and well sealed also helps reduce the presence of pests such as insects and rodents. By taking these precautions, you can prevent many problems, saving money, time, and material resources, which can then be allocated to other collection needs. In terms of storage, everything starts with a well chosen and well maintained space. When it comes to pests, one of the most important measures for detecting and avoiding problems in paper collections is placing insect traps, at least one or two depending on the size of the space. These traps should be checked regularly to identify which insects are present and in what numbers. Traps do not eliminate an infestation nor guarantee that insects will stop circulating. The goal is to help identify the type of insects present near the collections and assess whether they are in a concerning quantity or not. If harmful insects for collections are detected, such as termites, wood-boring beetles, or silverfish, prompt action should be taken. In the case of termites and wood-boring beetles, even finding a single one is cause for concern. The aim of this pest monitoring is to intervene before an infestation escalates and causes severe damage, which could result in high recovery costs, and we want to avoid it. Regarding light, it's important to be aware that all light damage is irreversible, whether from natural light or from artificial light. Therefore, prevention is essential. Whenever possible, you should keep books and documents in complete darkness. To do that, you just have to switch off lights and cover windows, for example, with curtains, blinds, or shutters. These are all cost-free actions that can also save energy and money. Light should be used only when necessary for the minimum amount of time and at minimum intensity required for people to see the items well. This not only protects the collection, but also reduces energy costs from lighting again. Whenever possible, incandescent bulbs should be replaced with LEDs or other low energy lighting sources. Although the initial investment in LEDs is higher, it quickly pays off due to electricity savings and the greater durability of LED bulbs. When it comes to temperature and relative humidity, we often talk about the ideal levels for different types of collections. This is a useful thing as it helps us understand which levels we should aim for to preserve our collections. However, keeping ideal temperature and humidity levels often requires so much energy that it may not be financially or environmentally sustainable. What matters most is to keep levels stable and with slow variations within acceptable ranges. It may not be possible to achieve the ideal values, but stability is crucial. Before investing in an air conditioning system or running machines 24 hours a day, something I often recommend is to try to understand how the building behaves naturally. To do that, temperature and relative humidity levels can be recorded throughout the day, for example, for a few weeks or months, without using any machines to control the environment. Then the data should be analyzed to assess whether the space remains within reasonable limits. Often, machines are only necessary at specific times, for example, in winter, in summer, or at night, which allows significant savings in money and electricity. Whenever possible, the ideal option is passive environmental control systems, for example, by using materials that absorb and release moisture, such as silica gel, and keeping doors and windows well sealed to avoid uncontrolled air circulation. Speaking of values, very briefly, because as I mentioned, maintaining stable conditions is the most important task. Around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit is a good reference temperature to ensure both human comfort and manageable costs. However, if the temperature is lower, that's even better. And it's natural for it to be higher in summer, which is not necessarily a problem. Relative humidity should be kept below 60% because, especially above 65%, the risk of mold growth increases a lot. Here we have an image of a book that suffered severe mold damage. This is exactly what we want to avoid by controlling relative humidity and maintaining it whenever possible under 60%. Now, within our spaces, we have furniture. Furniture where we store books and documents. In terms of structure, the preferred material for the furniture is metal. If it's not possible to acquire metal shelves or flat file cabinets, in many cases, wooden furniture can be used. However, certain precautions are needed. If the existing furniture is made of wood, both shelves and drawers should be lined with materials that minimize the effects of harmful gas emissions. A relatively inexpensive solution is to line them with white tissue paper or white cardstock. In any case, the spaces where you have collections, especially those with wooden furniture, should be ventilated to avoid the accumulation of undesirable gases. Making sure there is frequent air circulation is very important in many situations to prevent damage. It's also very important to use suitable furniture for the books and documents to be stored. For example, you should use shelves or flat file cabinets with the required dimensions. Flat file cabinets, for example, should have drawers wide and deep enough to properly accommodate oversized documents without damaging them. Also, a minimum distance of 5 centimeters or 2 inches should be kept between the furniture and the walls to allow air circulation. The lowest shelves and drawers should be at least 15 centimeters or 6 inches above floor level, so that in the event of flooding, there is time to rescue items closest to the ground before they are affected by water. And all shelving should have a top cover to prevent water that could eventually come from the ceiling from falling directly onto the books. This top should be slightly separated from the ceiling to prevent mold growth and allow air circulation. Very often, the real problem is the lack of space to store our collections. Here are some ideas to try to overcome this issue. If possible, try to reorganize books and documents already on shelves to free up some space. In the case of metal shelving, consider adding extra shelves. But before, please make sure that the structure and the floor can support the additional weight. Furniture can also be arranged to make better use of the available space and to create room for more units. On the right, you can see an example related to the REORG project from ICROM, which aims to implement storage or reorganization projects, especially in museums. In these projects, the working group takes a storage area and develops a plan to store the same collection, but in a much more efficient way, making the best possible use of the available space and existing furniture. The before and after images show how much can be done with what is already available, even with existing limitations. To achieve this, collaboration among several people thinking together is often needed to find the best solutions for the available space. I also consider very important to provide training and information to those handling paper collections. They must be fully aware of the care required, for example, when removing and returning books on the shelves. Knowing good practices reduces the risk of causing damage. This way, money, time, and materials needed for repairing tears, detached covers, among other damages, are saved. In addition, work becomes faster, more efficient, and with fewer mistakes. The truth is that when mistakes are made, a great deal of time, money, and energy is spent correcting them. So, sharing information and knowledge with everyone who handles items of any collection is essential. Regarding materials, we will explore specific alternative materials that I want to recommend. Here, what I would like to emphasize is that we should make the most of available materials, minimizing waste. And what does this mean? For example, if we use transparent polyester film, such as Melinex or Mylar, to create an enclosure, there will be some leftover pieces of polyester film. These scraps can and should be kept for other uses. For example, to make small photo corners to mount postcards, photographs, or other small items in an album or other support as shown in the lower image. This reuse can be done with polyester film as well with cardboard, paper, Japanese paper, etc. What matters is to make the most of leftovers, not to throw them away immediately, and to think about how they can be reused. Here is an extra tip, especially for those of you who have to deal with high humidity levels. I suggest reusing the distilled water that comes from the humidifiers. This water can be used for certain conservation actions, for example, to prepare water-based adhesive or to moisten a brush when distilled water is required. And if there is no conservation treatment requiring this water, it can be used by cleaning staff to wash bathrooms, floors, etc. This way, we can use for free the distilled water that humidifiers take from the air. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Are you enjoying this training so far? And who wants more? Tell me in the chat, please. Yes, yes, yes. That's great. Thank you. So let's go. Now we will talk about some alternative and more affordable materials that you can use to store books, documents, and other types of paper-based works. When there are no resources to purchase the ideal materials, such as acid-free paper, acid-free cardboard, or polyester film with archival quality, there are situations where more affordable materials can be used. However, if the alternative material is of poor quality, it should only be used temporarily, and it should be replaced with better quality material as soon as possible. Here are some examples. White tissue paper can be used instead of acid-free paper to separate documents stored in drawers or boxes, to separate album pages, to separate bindings that should not be in direct contact, to wrap books, and to line the interior of boxes, for example. You can also use white cotton fabric or non-woven fabric. It can be used, for example, to line the inside of boxes that are not the most suitable, creating a protective barrier. You can use good quality white printing paper, for example, to separate fragile sheets or documents, or even to wrap books or documents. But please note that it's not recommended to use tracing paper, newsprint, craft paper, or colored papers. These papers can acidify quickly and can cause serious damage. We don't want that. You can use good quality white cardstock, which can be used, for example, to make folders, covers, envelopes, and other custom enclosures, and also to line shelves or drawers of unsuitable or deteriorated furniture. For example, I once had to store some old accounting books on metal shelves that had many signs of oxidation. So, to avoid direct contact with the documents, I lined all the shelves with white cardstock, and that was enough to avoid damage to the documents. Sometimes we have to work with what we have. You can also use ordinary or old boxes as long as they are physically in good condition. Deteriorated boxes should be avoided. If it's not possible to buy or to build new, more suitable boxes, the best option is to test the pH of the existing boxes. The ideal pH is around 7 or 8. If the pH is 6 or lower, it means the board is acidified and the box should not be used. If you use old boxes, you should line the interior with acid-free paper or white tissue paper. You can also use cotton fabric or non-woven fabric, such as Remade. For those of you who are unsure how to test pH, I will share a link in the chat with a video I published on Instagram explaining how you can test pH. In some situations, you can use corrugated polypropylene to make boxes. Sometimes it's a more affordable solution than archival quality cardboard boxes. This material degrades mainly when exposed to light, so it's more suitable to use in storage areas that remain in the dark most of the time. When you have in your collection large format documents, but no flat file cabinets, a good option can be to store them rolled. However, some documents, such as maps, plans, or drawings on thin or fragile paper, cannot withstand being rolled up on themselves. In these cases, it's useful to use tubes around which you can roll the documents. Ideally, these should be tubes made of acid-free board, but if there is no budget to purchase them, regular cardboard tubes can be used as an alternative. These tubes can often be found at companies that sell textiles or print advertising banners, since many of their materials come rolled on tubes. However, some precautions must be taken. Before rolling the documents, the tube should be lined with transparent polyester film, such as Melinex or Mylar, and or with acid-free paper or a neutral pH tissue paper. Only after that you can safely roll the documents onto the tube. For several conservation tasks, including the construction of enclosures, we need to make markings and cuts that could damage our work table. To avoid it, you can use a cutting board or mat to protect the work table. If there is no budget to purchase a professional cutting mat, like the green one you see in the first image, you can use an unfinished wooden board which works just as well. It protects the work table during cutting. It's a more economical solution that also works effectively. Now we are going to talk about sharing resources and knowledge, which is so important and sometimes forgotten. I strongly encourage sharing doubts and knowledge among professionals and anyone caring for a collection. I think it's important to admit when we lack knowledge on a subject and really need guidance. Sometimes even just help in finding where the information is. On the other hand, it's just as important to be willing to help and share what we know with others. A simple way to do both, ask for help and offer it, is to post questions in conservation or heritage forums. Other professionals who have faced similar challenges can then share their ideas and solutions. We don't always need to reinvent the wheel, and we shouldn't fear criticism. If someone criticizes, that's on them. We are doing our best for our collections. So let's keep sharing our questions and our knowledge. This way, everyone benefits. I also want to emphasize that I believe it's very important to develop more collaboration, not only among professionals, but also among institutions, sharing knowledge as well as resources like materials and equipment. I suggest borrowing or renting equipment that is not used permanently instead of buying it. For example, there are institutions that may have monitoring devices, vacuum cleaners, lab equipment, among others, that are not constantly in use and can be loaned or rented to another institution or colleague in need. For this, we may need to create a system that allows us to know what exists and where, so we can request it. I believe this can be built over time through the sharing of information. In short, we all face challenges and limitations, but if we share what we have, we can help each other and everyone benefits. So let's do it. That's also why I'm here to share my knowledge with you. Just to give you an idea, in less than 1 hour, you've already learned how to optimize available space for storing paper collections, ways to reduce costs when managing environmental conditions, how to adapt storage furniture to the needs of a collection by reusing what you already have, what kind of alternative and more affordable materials you can use, and how to benefit from sharing knowledge and resources. I believe you already have plenty of ideas you can apply to your own situation, so write them down before you forget them. That's my advice. But what you learned today is not enough to know everything you need in order to properly protect your books and documents. And that's why I want to share with you a program I created specifically for those of you who want to deepen your knowledge in the field of paper collection conservation. In this program, you will learn how to monitor and control environmental conditions, how to choose the most suitable storage furniture for the collection, how to store books and documents in different types of furniture. You will also explore safe ways of exhibiting paper-based items. You will learn how to build different types of enclosures, how to store and preserve oversized documents, how to protect paper photographs, how to perform minor repairs on paper, and how to remove mold from paper documents. Now, I want you to imagine where you could be in less than 6 months. Because when you join this course, you'll be able to make confident decisions. You'll know what to do and what to avoid when caring for paper collections, even with limited resources. And I'll be here whenever you need help. You can message me with your questions anytime. You will feel more confident in your role. You'll be able to show initiative and technical knowledge that truly makes a difference. You will prevent damage and loss. You will know how to identify risks early and take action before things get worse. And yes, you will save money. You can save a lot of money because when you put proper preventive measures into practice, you avoid many expenses on major interventions to repair damage. If you decide to continue this journey with me, here's what you will get. Lifetime access to the online course Conservation of Paper Collections, 11 modules of pre-recorded lessons, 3 bonus modules, the flexibility to study at your own pace and from anywhere, ongoing updates over time, templates and other useful work materials, and the chance to ask me your questions directly. Here you get a glimpse of what you will see when you enter the course. In the first modules, you will learn how to identify common types of damage and risk factors, to prevent damage and loss, which includes monitor and control temperature, relative humidity, light, pests, and pollutants, and also handle and clean collections properly. You will also learn how to store books, documents, maps, and other types of paper-based items, how to make your own enclosures, such as boxes, folders, envelopes, and window mats, and you will learn how to display paper-based items safely in showcases, frames, shelves, etc. You will learn how to carry out minor paper repairs like flattening paper, mending tears, and reattaching pages or covers with the help of tutorial videos. And you will have access to 3 bonus modules where you will learn how to preserve large format documents, how to clean moldy paper safely, and how to care for paper photographs. And for you who are here with me today, I have a special offer. If you enroll today or in the next few days, you can purchase the course with more than 50% discount. Or you can choose to pay in 12 easy installments. No matter which option you choose, you get immediate access to all lessons. I'll drop the course link here in the chat area for anyone ready to grab this special offer. If you are in the middle of the checkout and lose audio, don't worry. You can come back here once you're done and continue watching. If you have any trouble, just click the webinar link in your email and rejoin. Just so you know, the total value of this course is over 1,700 euros, but today you can get it for just a fraction of that. So if you can, don't miss this opportunity to invest in your training and your future. This is the page you will see when you click the course link. Here, just choose the payment option that works best for you. On the checkout page, all you need to do is enter your email address, name, and country, and choose your preferred payment method. That's it. Super simple. And as promised, we're now sharing in the chat the link to download the PDF with today's slides and all the suggestions I mentioned. So feel free to download it. And now it's time for your questions. I will answer some questions I get all the time. And meanwhile, feel free to keep posting in the chat. But Diana, I really don't have the time for the course. I hear it a lot, believe me. The truth is that you only need 20 minutes a day to go through 1 or 2 lessons, and in less than 6 months, you can complete the entire course. 20 minutes is about half of a Netflix episode or a short scroll on social media. So if you really want this, I'm sure you can find the time. The lessons are already available, so you can go completely at your own pace. Now it's your choice. Do you want to invest a little time in yourself? I also get this question a lot. I'm responsible for a paper collection, but I don't have a conservation background. Will this course help me? My answer is yes. This program was designed specifically for professionals like you, working with paper-based collections without a paper conservator on the team, and looking for practical, reliable guidance to manage preservation tasks with confidence. So, go for it. What if the course doesn't work for you? Don't worry, you'll get your money back if you complete the course, apply what you learn, and don't see any results. So, once you buy the course, you'll get lifetime access to the lessons, free updates, and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you don't see results. Now, let me check the chat and answer a few more live questions. Let me see. What care should I take to properly store recent documents? Well, it's important to pay attention to the spaces and shelving where documents are kept. Avoid excessive humidity and heat. Use shelves with a top and never place documents directly on the floor. Whenever possible, use folders and boxes made of archival quality material if possible. Avoid metal clips or staples in direct contact with documents. If you must use them, place a sheet of paper or card between the document and the metal to prevent future damage. such as stains from rust. Okay, next question. How should I store large maps and architectural plans? Oversized documents like maps and plans are best stored either flat in special cabinets or rolled. In the course, I show you step by step how to store them both ways, so those lessons can be very useful for you. Let me check another question. How can I protect books from dust? For special books, it's a good idea to use protective boxes to protect them from dust. You can buy ready-made boxes or you can make your own boxes. In the course, I show how to make different types of boxes and which materials to use. Beyond that, I recommend cleaning shelves and storage spaces regularly, as well as dusting the books themselves from time to time. Okay, one more question. Do you recommend alternatives to regular paper clips, staples, or adhesive tape? Yes. For example, you can use plastic or brass clips instead of regular metal clips. Instead of staples, you can place the sheets inside a polyester sleeve or envelope. And instead of common adhesive tape like Scotch tape, you can use conservation paper tapes such as Filmoplast P or Filmoplast P90. But even these tapes should only be used on recent, low-value documents or books. Let me see another question. Okay. What precautions should be taken when storing cardboard bindings next to leather bindings? Well, leather bindings should not be in direct contact with bindings made of paper, board, or cloth. If they need to be side by side, place a sheet of paper between them or build a protective enclosure for some books to avoid damage. And let me see, one last question. How should I store photographs? Well, it depends on the type of photographic process. Paper photographs in general can be stored in envelopes, boxes, mounts, sleeves, or albums. In the course, I show how to make many of these enclosures, custom size for your photos, and I explain the conditions and materials best suited for each type of photographic process. I believe these lessons will be very helpful for you. And we've reached the end of our webinar. I know that many of you have already enrolled in the course while we were talking here. I am really happy to have you with me on this journey. If you are in the middle of checkout and run into any issues, just send an email to the email address you see here. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I truly enjoyed spending this time with you. I hope you also enjoyed it, and I can't wait for you to start putting to practice with your books or documents everything you are learning. I am here to help in any way I can. I wish you all the best and see you next time.